أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي آمين يا رب العالمين. Assalamu alaikum everyone and welcome back to Musanna, which means double plural. Now in the previous lesson, which is 8b, we did the masculine Musanna, and now we're going to complete the topic by doing its feminine counterparts. Okay, now as a brief overview, in the previous lesson we learned that there are two sounds or two suffixes, ani and aini. Okay, and we also learned that this was for rafa and this suffix was for nasab or jar, and we also know that it is actually the context as well as some other signs that we're going to learn in the subsequent chapters that are going to help us distinguish whether it's the nasab form or the jar form. Okay, and it's fairly easy, so don't worry about it. Okay, so these were the two suffixes that we learned for for masculine. Now what's different in feminine musanna is something very simple. Okay, so the only thing that we're going to do is add a ta in the beginning. Okay, so in masculine we had the ani and aini sounds or suffixes, and in feminine we are going to have tani or taini suffixes. That is all. Okay, and this is what's going to be elaborated in this lesson in different ways. All right, and we're going to study a lot of examples. All right, so before we proceed, let's have a look at our overview, which says ani, aini for masculine, and tani, taini for feminine. Okay, all right, so let's begin. And this thing can also be seen in this example. So kitabun is the masculine ism and its suffix is ani, all right, and the previous root, the last root letter carries a fatha. So kitabani, kitabaini. Okay, and in feminine we are going to have the suffix of tani and taini. Okay, bintun becomes bintani and bintaini. So this would be in rafa form and this would be in nasab or jar form. As I mentioned before, okay, the only difference between these two is the addition of this ta. Alright, this is the only difference. Okay, let's proceed. So our first step is the replacement of the ta marbuta with a regular ta. So, well, the example that I did here is bintun, okay, and this doesn't carry the this ta marbuta. This step is for those asma that end in ta marbuta, such as this one, muslimatun. Okay, so this one ends in ta marbuta, but bintun doesn't end in this thing in ta marbuta. Okay, so this step is actually for those asma that end in ta marbuta. Okay, so our first step is to replace this ta marbuta with a regular ta, and that ta has to carry a fatha with it. Okay, so salihatun becomes salihatta. Alright, the sound is same, the only difference is in writing actually, and it is this ta marbuta becomes regular ta. Why does this happen? This happens because this ta marbuta does not attach uh, with an alif or with a ya. Okay, it cannot be written, it just doesn't make any sense. Okay, it cannot ever be written this way. However, these are the two letters that are present in our suffixes for musanna. Okay, so what we do is that we simply replace this ta with this regular ta. Okay, that's what has happened. So this round ta or this timer bhuta gets replaced with this regular ta that carries a fatha on it. So salihatun becomes salihata. Alright, and in the next step, as we did in the masculine musanna, we are simply going to add our suffix. Okay, so this ta part, the blue part, okay, this is simply explaining this first step, that this ta has become this ta. The timer bhuta has become the regular ta. This is the only thing, okay, and this brown thing is actually your suffix. However, for the sake of simplicity and ease, and to avoid repetition with some words that I'm going to point out shortly, we simply say that the suffix for feminine is tani, taini, taini. Okay, do not get caught up in that. So we can see that salihatun, yeah, salihatun becomes salihatani because the ta marbuta gets replaced with a regular ta that carries a fatha, and then the suffix gets added as the next step, which is ani. Similarly, in salihataini, we can see that the round ta or the ta marbuta gets replaced with a regular ta that carries a fatha, and the suffix is this. Okay, but of course, for simplicity, as I mentioned earlier, we are going to say that it's the suffix of tani and taini taini. Okay, so salihatani, salihataini, salihataini. All right, so I hope this is clear, and let's proceed to the examples. Okay, so muslimatun. Now this is actually the feminine version of the word muslimun, and we did it in the previous in the last week's lessons. All right, so muslimun, how did it become muslimatun? It became muslimatun by replacing this tanween with a fatha and adding the suffix of ta marbuta, which is actually one of the three flags of feminine gender in Arabic. So Muslimun becomes Muslimatun this way. And then from Muslimatun we are going to make it Musanna. How so? Simply replace this round ta with a regular ta, alright, that carries a fatha, and then add the suffix of ani. Okay, so in short, Muslimatun becomes Muslimatani with the suffix of tani. Okay, this is for your Rafa form. Then Muslimatan is the Nasab form of singular Muslim. Then singular feminine Muslim. Okay, so Muslimatan, it becomes Muslimataini, and Muslimatin becomes Muslimataini. Once again, we can see that the Rafa, the Nasab and the Jar forms are similar. Okay, and it's actually your Rafa form that is different. Okay, and just as I had showed in the beginning, that the only difference between the masculine and the feminine counterparts is the addition of this little te in the feminine suffixes. We can see that that's how it has come to pass. Okay, so muslimatun, muslimatan, muslimatin, muslimatani, muslimataini, muslimataini. Next example. So this is the point that I wanted to elaborate on. Now we can see that this is a regular ta. Okay, it is not ta marbuta. We can all see that. Okay, now the second thing is this ta here is actually the root letter. Okay, it's one of the three root letters of this word bentun. It is not a suffix, and it is an integral part of this word. Okay, so this ta here, okay, this is one of the root letters. However, this ta marbuta here is not the root letter. Okay, this is your suffix for the feminine counterpart of the word muslimun. Okay, therefore don't get caught up between this and this. Okay, so of course we don't need to open up this ta. Okay, so this ta this regular ta in bintun doesn't need any replacement. Okay, it already is that ta. So instead of making it bintatani, we are going to make it bintani. Okay, so just uh, just keep this in your mind, because some people tend to make this mistake. So they think that it's actually tani that is the suffix. So if they find a word such as this, right, that has this regular ta in the end, they tend to add the tani suffix after this regular ta, so it becomes binta tani. Okay, so that's the reason I elaborated on this point, that this round ta actually gets replaced with regular ta and not the integral regular ta. Okay, therefore we get bintani and not bintatani. Okay, bintani is your rafa form, two girls. Bintan is your nasab form for one girl, and it musanna form in nasab configuration it would be bintaini. Okay, and once again in jar it becomes bintaini. Alright, so how are you going to practice it? You're going to say bintun, bintan, bintin, bintani, bintaini, bintaini. Okay, so I hope these 2 points are clear, inshallah. Next point. Next example. Jannatun. Once again, we can see our this thing, the round ta. Okay, and what do we know? Whenever we see a round ta, what do we do with it? We replace it with a regular ta that carries a fatha, and then this ani gets added as a suffix. Okay, so one garden is jannatun or jannatan or jannatin, and two gardens will be jannatani, jannataini, jannataini. Okay, two gardens. Jannatani, jannataini, jannatani. All right. Next example. Shajaratun, a tree. Okay, this is a tree. Shajaratun is the rafa form. Shajaratan nasab. Shajaratin jar. Okay, so this is all singular. And in musanna, what happens? The ta marbuta gets replaced with a regular ta that carries a fatha and this suffix, which is ani. Alright, so this indicates rafa form. Shajaratani, shajarataini, which is your nasab, and then again shajarataini is your jar form. Okay, so this is musanna 2p. Okay, now let's um skip the explanation part, because I know by now you must have memorized that what happens to this round ta and what is it replaced with, and what is the specification for this round for this regular ta. Okay, so what harkat it has to carry, and then what is the suffix. Okay, so we're going to stop verbalizing all these things. Okay, and we're simply going to say that we're going to add the suffix of tani or taini. Okay, let's look at this next example, which is ghafilatun. Now in the previous lesson we did its masculine counterpart, which was ghafilun. And how did it become ghafilatun? Simply by replacing its tanween with the fatha and then adding a round ta, so it became ghafilatun. We have covered these conversions, the masculine to feminine conversions, in our 7th lesson. All right, so if you haven't watched that, I would really encourage you to go and watch that video, because that forms the basis of so many different concepts that we're going to study. Okay, so just try and make sure that you are following the videos in an order. Okay, so ghafilatun, this is a feminine that is neglectful, or a neglectful feminine. Okay, فغافلة. What happens to this round ta? I hope you're saying it. Okay, that's why I'm not going to say it. And then what happens? We add the suffix. Okay, next. Ghafilatun is your singular. Okay, so ghafilatun, ghafilatan, ghafilatin, all singular. Rafa, nasab, jar. In musanna, they're going to become ghafilatani, ghafilataini, ghafilataini. All right, I hope that you can now move ahead of me, inshallah. All right, our final example is an ism that is mu'arraf bil lam. Okay, so it has an alif lam attached to it. Okay, so it is the definite form. So al muslimatu, the submitting feminine or the submitting female. So what happens? Nothing happens. All right, it's the same suffix. Okay, the only difference is the addition of this prefix and nothing else. So our actual word was, the word that we began with actually was muslimun. Okay, muslimun, which is your a submitting male. So this became al muslimu. Okay, and then from this al muslimu we made its musanna form, which was al muslimani. Okay, this was in the previous lesson. From this word we then derived the feminine counterpart, which was muslimatan. Okay, muslimatan. Okay, muslimatan. And if we try and make its mu'arraf bil lam form, we're going to form al muslimatu, which is this word, and its musanna would be this. Okay, so muslimatun, muslimatun's musanna would be muslimatani. All right, and if you want to make it mu'arraf bil lam, simply add al in the beginning, so it would be al muslimatani. Okay, and then al muslimataini, al muslimataini. Okay, so these are fairly easy concepts. Okay, and all you need to do with these is practice, because practice will make you perfect, and it's not just a saying. All right, it is a fact. So we have completed the topic of musanna. All right, which is a double plurals, and we know the ani aini suffixes for masculine, and for the feminine counterparts we know the suffixes of tani and taini, and we all know where this ta comes from and why it is so important to mention these tas. All right, in the next lesson inshallah we are going to cover our jama salim. All right, this thing here. So yeah, all right, Jama Salim. And in case you haven't watched the video where I elaborated on the difference between Jama Salim and the Jama Mukassir, I would encourage you to go back to lesson 8a and just watch that lesson so that you know what is the difference and what's the importance of these two. Okay, so till that time inshallah, barakallahu li wa lakum fil Quran al Hakim. I'll see you in the next lesson where we are going to cover Jama Salim. Okay? Till that time, keep on practicing, guys. It's really important. Allah Hafiz.